Hello and welcome to the Energy Talk podcast. My name is Olubumi Olajide and thank you for joining us again this week. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the oil and gas industry, specifically how it's been affected by the COVID pandemic. And as you may or may not know, the oil prices have been very pressed lately due to various concerns around reduced demand and also the lockdowns around the world. So right now, the oil prices are sitting around less than $40 per barrel, and this causes serious problems, especially for the oil and gas services industry, which are more sensitive to oil price fluctuations, especially when they're this low. Usually, the oil and gas service industry companies respond by laying off majority of their workforce. We actually have covered this topic in the past on the podcast. I'll be recommending the episode in the description, in the show notes of this episode, so you can go listen to that. We had a fantastic guest from Schlumberger talk to us about what it's like to survive a downturn. And right now, the industry is going through another downturn, and this one might have more lasting impacts on the industry. So today we're going to be speaking with a guest who's going to walk us through what his company is doing and how they've adapted to the pandemic and what the outlook is looking like for the future of the oil and gas services sector. And more largely, maybe we can revisit this topic again and talk more broadly about the exploration and production companies around the world. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and let's get right into the conversation.
Yeah, so been at Jardia for quite some time now, 25 years. So it's been basically straight from school, and obviously living in Aberdeen, which is the energy capital of the UK for oil and gas. It just kind of fell into, I guess I would like to say, into Gyro Data, and from there carried out a number of roles within the organisation, starting out in the electronics lab, working on the tools and systems that were getting shipped offshore, and then took the step out into the offshore operations, which took me to many places over the globe, which was very interesting. Many wonderful places and some not so nice places, but yeah, really interesting opportunities that Jardy has given me in that sense. And then, as with the age, time was to settle down a bit more, and took a role in the office, was in like operational support structure and role. And luckily got the opportunity to move in a sales role, is where I find myself today, which is, I really do, love the sales role, although it's changed a lot over the last, I think 150 days we had yesterday here in the UK from being the lockdown. So yeah, certainly the travelling that we would have done in a sales role has completely changed, and we've evolved like everyone else to do more online video podcasts, webinars, such like, to make sure that we're reaching out to our customers still. So yeah, that's where I am today.
Okay. So before we get into a bit about what the changes were, I just want to hear about some of the places you've been to, because your sales manager role actually covers quite a large geographical area. So it's Europe, Africa, Caspian. So that's a lot of area space to be in charge of. So what interesting places have you been to, and what interesting experiences have you had through those travels?
Yeah, so I guess since my last LinkedIn update, we've kind of changed the role even further. So I'm actually Eastern Hemisphere sales team manager. So we've expanded it a little bit more, but it's given me the flexibility to have some more sales team in those areas that I wasn't looking after before, which has been great. As we look to improve our sales efforts at Gyro Data. So yeah, a big old area. Although it's I guess with the world we're in today, it's contracted a lot. Because of the shutdowns due to COVID, and it's likely to be here for a long time. So Gyro Data, we find ourselves with a lot less activity than we would have had even January this year. What we were forecasting for 2020, it suddenly changed dramatically. But still activity out there for the oil and gas sector. And yeah, we've over time we've been in some fantastic places. Spent a lot of time in sub-Saharan Africa. Pretty much most of the countries that are along the coast there. From Ghana to Nigeria, Cameroon, Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Congo, Angola. Spent over a year working in Angola. So yeah, a lot of time for for Africa as a continent. But yeah, equally Europe, a little bit in Caspian. So yeah, some as I say, some lovely destinations, some great people over the met over the time in the roles that I've held at Generator.
Okay, and I guess now we can kind of go into what has been different in the last 4 or 5 months, I suppose. So, what major changes have been put in place thanks to the COVID-19 outbreak, and especially because oil and gas service companies are a bit more sensitive to fluctuations in all prices. So, I'm curious how that has affected our data and you personally as you've gone through the last 5 months.
Yeah, so obviously we've seen the change in the service companies, unfortunately the reductions in workforce, which we're all going through. But it's not only oil and gas, other sectors as well. We're seeing that, which is really unfortunate. But it's the world we live in. But yeah, one of the big developments, or what's really pushed us during COVID, is the need to do things remotely. So not only as we talk here, in different areas of the planet, but certainly, I can't get in to see the customers that I would have. We have new technology that can help them in this environment, and we still need to be able to make them aware of that. So, as I say, webinars, presentations online, some of the systems that we rarely used before, like Zoom, Teams, they've all come to the fore and kind of helped us still collaborate with our customers really well. So that's been a big change for myself and the sales team. Looking at operations, as I mentioned, remote ops, we've had a lot of lockdowns, quarantines, not being able to have free movement of people between countries. So, we have a lot of engineers in locations such as Nigeria, Algeria, Norway, Azerbaijan, Russia, places like that. But there are a lot of countries where we don't have engineers in, and we support them from our UK engineer pool, even here in the UK. So, we were really restricted on where they could travel to and how long they had to spend in quarantine before they could, deliver our service. So that was a challenge that the guys, the operational teams managed to get by. And also, as I say, the technology has moved on for remote operations. So, we have been able to deliver a lot of remote operations in the North Sea, some from Angola, places in Azerbaijan, where we send, maybe we still have to send one engineer, but we can, and that would normally have been a 2-person job. We can do it with one, and sometimes zero, depending on the technology we deploy. So that's really been, a push forward from us to make sure we can do that and still support our customers.
And I guess this is actually a good opportunity to just like expand on what Gyro Data actually specializes on, because the oil and gas service company, it's a very it can be a very broad description of what of what a business actually does. So what services does Gyro Data really pride itself in specializing in and delivering to customers?
Yeah, so gyro data, as in the name, we focus mainly on gyroscopes. So we've been around for about 4 decades now. Obviously, mainly focused in the oil and gas industry, although we have dipped into likes of mining and civil engineering with the technology. However, our main focus is wellbore placement. So basically telling our clients, where their wellbore is in relation to where they plan to place it. So we can survey. We survey with a background on a gyro. So what is a gyroscope? There are sensors, basically, which were deployed in rockets and aeronautics originally, and planes, helicopters, missiles, for example. And what Gyro Data did was miniaturize an aerospace industry sensor, so that we could pass this down an oil well. So the developments have increased from then over, as I say, 4 decades. The teams have been working on the deployment, but our main focus is delivering for the oil and gas industry, and we continue to do so.
Yeah, and it actually seems that Jared Data is kind of doubling down on its specialty, because I saw as a press release from your company that you sold your directional drilling business to Intrepid. So
Yeah,
is this kind of like a statement of intent to kind of focus on what the core specialization is,
yeah.
especially now where there's a huge need to be very efficient with operations? Is this what drove this decision, or is there a lot more to this?
Yeah, it's all, as I say, we expanded into the directional domain, mainly in North America, but some other areas. And it's a big area for us. We had tried to focus with the new technology that we're delivering now, called our Spear Gyro technology. We saw that that could take us further than the capex heavy service industry that directional drilling is. So we really want to focus on introducing Spear technology to more customers, and working with them and deploying it in different ways over the coming years and months. We feel that new technology will keep us relevant in the changing environment that is the oil and gas industry. So to give you an example, we currently send two engineers to a rig. As I mentioned, we've tried to slim that down, but we're still sending equipment, people, tools to different locations. There's an inherent cost to that for the customer, so we want to try and help deliver that in a different way. And Spear technology, solid state gyro technology that we developed, we feel will allow us to do that, and as I say, allow us to maintain relevance in the industry as everything looks to reduce costs as we move to a different tomorrow, I guess.
Definitely. And going back to something you mentioned earlier, you mentioned that you've had 25 years in the industry now. So this
Yeah.
isn't the first cycle you've been through, because I think cycles are very regular in the oil and gas industry. But is there anything that kind of sticks out to you as this time is different in terms of how it affects you personally and how it's affecting Jared Data as a company?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we never really came out with the last one. Would be my first comment. Yeah, we at the start of this year, we were projecting growth. It certainly looked like so impactful straight away. From I guess March time, as I mentioned, when kind of lockdowns were put in place in a lot of European countries. We saw our business challenged massively overnight, and that's something that no downturn before has caused us to do that. It's a kind of certainly in international markets, it's a slower decline than we would see in likes of North America, where it goes very quickly generally. So we had operations in West Africa, and we're down to possibly 2-3 rigs there right now, compared to 15 to 25 over the late part of last year and into this year. So it was basically lights turned off overnight in a lot of these locations. Yeah, it's the way it's and it's a continued challenge, and it's I guess in sub-Saharan Africa where we there's areas that need that investment. They need the oil and gas, revenues to help, and it's going to be challenging there for the foreseeable to support some of these locations.
That's actually very, very interesting. And you kind of mentioned earlier that there are other applications, industries that have direct application technology that Jara Data possesses. You mentioned mining and civil engineering. I kind of see a trend where some oil and gas service companies are trying to fashion themselves or like brand themselves as technology companies, because they realize that the specialities that they have and the people that they have can apply it to areas outside of the oil and gas industry. Do you think this is something that the pandemic kind of advances in a certain way?
Yeah, we always look outside your own domain when you can. I think it's probably a little bit different in this one, that even all these industries are being affected right now. It's whereas before it was just oil and gas that declined. You still had mining still carrying on. So yeah, there may not be as many opportunities to diversify this time. I'd like to think there is, and certainly we try and do that wherever we can. Other services. The last downturn, we were as I mentioned, as the kind of information out there about Gyre, we're mainly a drilling and surveying company, but we introduced a logging technology during the last downturn that was more related to production efficiency, and that certainly helped us during the last downturn. So yeah, the smarter people at Gyro Data and the research and development really keep an eye on where we might see some of these products and technologies going in the future. But as every company is now capex restricted, there's only so far you can take things with the available resources right now.
And do you think that this adaptability is something that has been reinforced due to the pandemic? It has to become something that companies consider in this way.
Yeah, I think you look at any opportunity that is out there. Certainly for example, the mining industry. It's one that we have dipped our toe into before a number of times. One of the jobs I did in the past was a diamond mine in Botswana, surveying on location there, which was extremely interesting. And it just showed, we went in with a very accurate surveying technology, and basically told them that the technology they were using was pointing them to completely the wrong place to mine for the kimberlite. So, what we were offering was, making their recovery much more accurate by going after the right location. So they were basically, digging out tons and tons, millions of tons of rock, and to get to where they thought the kimberlite was, and effectively they were digging in the wrong place. So you see how using you might pay slightly more for an enhanced, a superior technology, but the the reward from using that is a much bigger saving. So it's definitely something that we always try to push with our customers.
I just want to talk now about the people because, as you said, across all industries right now, it's there's been a lot of layoffs. Lots of people are in very difficult situations, and companies are different difficult situations as well. I think it's everyone's kind of in a bit of survival mode. And how has it really been on ground for Gyro Data from what you've experienced, and how is it affecting personnel and the morale around the company?
Yeah, I mean, I think in different areas it is perceived differently. I guess the people who have to deal, and it's a really difficult situation we're in now, where a lot of into exit interviews or redundancy processes are being done over a Skype call or a Teams meet. You can't be there to comfort the person in person that you've known for 20 plus years, and you're letting them go. So that is it's a very different way that we're having to do things now, which is it's not the human way that we'd like to do things. So that certainly is a difference. I think people are at least accepting that it's not something that the company wants to do. I think all industry or all places of work are seeing that now. It's not something that's been brought on by themselves. It's something that's a lot bigger than that. So I think there's at least a little bit of an acceptance that in some roles we need to change this, as you say, survival mode to help us ride out this pandemic.
And do you see this having like a more long-standing effect before things start to stabilize? Because as compared to other cycles, it's kind of goes up and down, and that has been the trend, and it's always kind of rebounded to a certain point where things kind of stabilize and almost gets better, if you will. So do you see this one having a much more lasting impact on the industry and specifically to Gyro Data as well?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit twofold. We've got the impact of COVID restricting movement of people. I certainly haven't driven my car a lot in the last 150 odd days. Use of resources is certainly restricted. We're seeing the caps that the big oil companies and governments are trying to put in place to stabilize the oil price. It's been stable at $40, which has been a good thing for everyone for a while. But yeah, is there then going to be the investment from outside the industry going on? Now that we've people are talking about operating differently, not going to the office, working from home. Do we need as much fuel? Do we need as much resources to do that as we do things differently? And certainly, the greener side of it, it's the right thing to do for the environment as we move, I guess, to the towards, as you talk about, energy transition. How can we do things a little bit differently in the future? So So yes, I think there's going to be, not as great an investment. You see BP talking about, changing the amount of barrels per oil they're going to deliver per year in the future, because they're moving towards an energy company rather than an oil and gas production company. So yeah, clearly there's signs from companies like BP and Shell that they are moving into other environments rather than just just oil and gas.
Kind of speaking on the energy transition, and you kind of mentioned the movements by BP and Shell as they move towards being an energy company. So I think it's fair to say. I actually want to hear your opinion on this. That different sectors or different regions around the world would move a lot differently, or would move at different paces in terms of how quickly they can transform themselves and move away from fossil fuels, especially when you're considering countries in Africa, especially. So I just want to hear your opinion on that first, if I go on to the next question.
Yeah, I mean, clearly there are locations in Nigeria, for example. That was the last place I travelled to before we had the COVID lockdowns for the conference in Lagos, about energy conference, and it was great to hear the new investment opportunities there. But yeah, as I say, the potential, there's only three. I think we've got 3 rigs operating in Nigeria right now. So it's going to be, there's a lot of restrictions to getting things moving. The investment, as I mentioned, from some of the big companies, they are like Exxon, Total, Chevrons, which have always been massive in places like Nigeria, seem to pull back a little bit right now. Certainly this year and into part of next. So yeah, I think you are relying on a lot of some of the smaller companies, the more indigenous companies, and NNPC need to really push to help that investment come back into the locations to really get that industry moving again. Certainly Angola's got challenges that we see. Again, people like BP looking to change their portfolio and maybe not go back into Angola. Whereas Exxon, Total, they still want to drive into places like these because they still see the benefit from locations, the investments they have there already.
And especially because you kind of brought it up, especially when they kind of move more into more large scale projects, especially natural gas project has been the kind of project, especially in Sub-Saharan Africa, that attracting this kind of investments,
Yes.
or renewed investments, if you will.
Yeah, no, certainly you see around Tanzania, even East Africa. I guess it's the time frame that some of these projects take to get to fruition. From the initial phase to actually being able to suddenly produce LNG. And I guess that's one of a lot of African problems, is that a lot of the energy still goes out with the continent. And there's a whole millions of people still don't have that energy reliability that we take for granted in Europe. So I think governments are trying to look at that. It's not a change that's going to happen overnight, but certainly some of the sub-Saharan African locations really, they need that investment, and it needs to reach the end goal. Whereas I guess we have seen corruption in some places, Nigeria moving towards the right way of trying to fix that, which is great.
Some international companies have kind of they're setting pathways for themselves to fully embrace the title of being energy companies. I think in the past, some people might have looked at statements like have been made by BP and Shell in the last few months as greenwashing, which was rightfully so at certain points in the past. But right now, we're seeing these commitments being backed by action, and that just makes you think that if this is going to be where the future really pushes the energy sector as a whole, how does that affect companies like Gyrodata, and what role do you see Gyrodata filling in the future of work, basically in the energy sector?
Yeah, it's one that it does not play on my mind, but certainly something that you do think about how relevant we would be in a changing environment, and of oil and gas being maybe not as big a mix in the energy supply, but certainly I think with some of the projects we're involved in, and like we do a lot of work with Norway. certainly they, likes of Equinor, leading the way in trying to move towards cleaner energy from the oil and gas sector. So we work on one of the big projects there, the Johan Sverdrup development in Norway. It's potentially holding 2.7 billion barrels of oil. Now, it's all very well, holding that much oil, but if you've got nowhere to sell it, then that's a different thing. But if you can be the cleanest operation and recover that oil for the lowest price and produce the least CO2, you're probably going to be the most relevant player in the market. So it's certainly one of the projects we've been heavily involved in, and that's one of the ones where I think they're estimating a 60-year lifespan on that project. So to keep that going, you're going to need to keep drilling accurately and recovering maximum oil. And because they supplied from shore, they take hydropower and supply the platform basically. So it becomes a very clean. I think they estimate very, very low, less than 1 kilo CO2 per barrel. So potentially that's the type of projects that live for a long time, and the other ones which are not so clean don't. Certainly, our technologies help give the clients the accuracy. We as a company want to stay relevant by we've delivered, as I mentioned, our Spear gyro technology, solid state technology, which is completely different to what we've done before. It gives us a lot more options to do that, our little bit for the environment and that are for the clients that are drilling. So yeah, I think oil and gas they've got to be around. I don't think renewables are the total answer yet. They're definitely a very key, mix, but with gas, natural gas, there's certainly big benefits to be had from that.
Yeah, very, very true. And kind of a closing statement, if you will. We've spoken about a lot of key issues, especially how they're affecting gyro data and just the energy sector and the oil and gas sector in general. What key developments are you looking at in the next few months that would affect the operations at gyro data? And just personally, what key developments are you keeping your eye on in the next few months and hopefully in the next few years as well?
Yeah, so the big one for us right now is that we're looking to deploy our Quest gyro well drilling tool, is what we call it. Now this is built from solid state technology, and it's we've all got solid state technology, MIMS gyros in our phones and our cars, in many different facets. But that technology is it's not straightforward. We spent a lot of time in research and development trying to get this to where we are today and with the technology. And we feel we're there now. So we're deploying this technology. And what it does is it allows us to, as I mentioned earlier in the program, to remote operate. So, we don't need to, send people to the rig site. Now that's massive. That's 2 seats in a helicopter. That's a week offshore. That's us sending, somebody to, Africa to do a job on a plane, putting them in a hotel. So that certainly can help us, stay relevant in the industry. The additional accuracy we get with this new technology, then that allows the operators to deliver their wells, much more accurately, and certainly the time saving we can give with that as well. Again, that all helps to lower the cost of producing the oil or gas. So yeah, certainly a step change in that side of things. Longer term, we see the digital platforms that the likes of some of the bigger service companies are promoting now. We as a company need to be involved in that, and by deploying our technology with the main service companies and some of the other players, the other big service companies out there. We can still make sure we're a key part of the services delivery.
Very well said, and I think this is relevant now, and I think I don't know if you agree with me on this, but challenging periods like this are the ones that really drive innovation forward. I think they require innovation to actually stay alive. So I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. I think every downturn, there's something, evolution in how we do things. I think the oil and gas industry's evolved massively in the time I've spent in it. And certainly, times like this really require, deeper thinking and development into how we can, not do things the same and do it for, to allow us to stay relevant for longer. So yeah, no, I totally agree with your sentence there.
Thank you for joining us this week, and thank you to Fraser from Gyro Data and also from Stefan as well, who was a big help in setting up this interview in the first place. I hope you've learned a little bit about the oil and gas services sector, and it's very interesting because it's going to be an industry that's going to have to adapt very, very drastically to the energy transition, especially when oil services become less and less profitable and necessary, and they have to switch into more technology models and provide different services to service the larger energy industry and maybe other industries as well. But it's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out, and I hope this has been a very good way for you to learn about it, even if it's just very briefly at this point. So if you did like the episode, please share with a friend or a colleague. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Leave us a rating or a review, and follow us on Instagram and Twitter to keep the conversation going. We look forward to hearing from you, and our next episode of the podcast is going to be a bonus episode. We haven't done a bonus episode in a few months now, and we're really looking forward to having one again. So I'm looking forward to that and get to hear the voices of Jennifer and Owosa again. I don't think we've had their voices on the podcast in a very long time, so I'm really looking forward to that, and we will see you all very soon on Monday, because that's when the bonus episode is going to go up. So see you soon. Have a great day, and bye bye.